The tranquility of the early morning in Kenya's Samburu National Reserve was shattered by the sharp crack of gunfire, sending a panic of birds fleeing from the acacia trees. Wildlife Ranger Joseph Mua immediately dropped into a crouch, his experienced gaze sweeping across the golden savanna. Urgent voices crackled over his radio, updates from other rangers positioned throughout the protected area. A transmission confirmed poachers were in the eastern sector, near the river bend, with at least 3 vehicles involved. A heavy feeling settled in Joseph's stomach. This was the territory of the Nyota Pride, a group of lions his team had meticulously tracked for years. His primary concern was Zuri, the pride's dominant female, who had vanished into a secluded ravine several days earlier, a clear indication she was about to give birth. "I'm closest to the location," he confirmed into his radio, already moving to intercept. With 17 years dedicated to protecting Kenya's wildlife, Joseph's commitment was personal. Having grown up in a village bordering the reserve, he'd developed a deep reverence for the animals that drew visitors from across the globe. Lions, in particular, held a profound significance for him, tied to his grandfather, a tribal elder who believed they carried the spirits of great leaders, a belief Joseph treated with quiet respect. He was acutely aware of the stark reality: in his lifetime alone, Africa's lion population had declined by over 40%. Every pride, every newborn cub, represented a vital flicker of hope for the species' future. The distant drone of engines validated the radio warning. Using the terrain for cover, Joseph moved with practiced stealth through the brush. The ravine where Zuri had chosen her birthing site was less than a kilometer away. The situation would be critical if the poachers had that knowledge, possibly leaked by someone within the reserve. Lionesses typically isolate themselves to give birth, keeping their cubs hidden for roughly 6 weeks before reintroducing them to the pride. This period leaves both mother and cubs extremely susceptible, not only to natural predators like hyenas but increasingly to humans exploiting the exotic animal black market. Reaching a small rise that overlooked the ravine, Joseph spotted them, 3 armed men advancing toward the rocky outcropping concealing the den. Their vehicle was deliberately hidden some distance away among the trees. This was no random hunt, they had precise knowledge of their target. Joseph urgently radioed for backup, but the nearest unit was at least 15 minutes out. The poachers would reach Zuri before any help could arrive. Making a rapid, high-stakes decision, Joseph abandoned concealment and broke into a run toward the ravine, shouting and firing his sidearm into the air. It was a desperate ploy, 1 man against 3 armed poachers, but the element of surprise was his only edge. The men spun around, caught off guard by the commotion. One started to raise his rifle, but another grabbed his arm, shouting a command. Rather than engage, they retreated to their vehicle. Apparently, their mission wasn't worth a direct confrontation with armed rangers. Joseph kept up his pursuit until the poacher's vehicle vanished behind a cloud of dust. Only then did he cautiously approach the den, his mind filled with worry. Zuri had successfully raised 7 cubs in previous pregnancies, but she was older now, and this one had seemed particularly arduous. The den's narrow entrance was naturally obscured by overhanging rock and vegetation. Kneeling, Joseph listened carefully. The faint sounds of movement and a low, rumbling purr were a relief. The lioness was alive inside, though her condition and any newborn cubs were unknown. Protocol generally dictated minimal human interference, but these were exceptional circumstances. The poachers' targeted interest suggested they knew something of immense value was inside, something worth the risk of arrest. Using his flashlight, Joseph peered cautiously into the shadows. A warning growl and a reflection of amber eyes met him. Zuri was alert, a positive sign. As his eyes adjusted, he saw them, 4 tiny cubs nestled against her, their eyes still closed shut. 3 appeared typical, with the spotted tan fur that would eventually develop into the pride's golden coats. But the 4th, slightly smaller, was startlingly, impossibly white. Joseph stared, stunned. White lions are exceptionally rare, a result of a condition called leucism, a recessive genetic mutation. Unlike albinos, they retain normal eye color and some pigmentation. Most documented cases were from South Africa's Timbavati region, hundreds of miles away. A white lion cub born in Samburu was unprecedented. The poacher's specific intent now made terrible sense. Such a cub would command an astronomical price on the black market, destined for a private collector or an unethical zoo. His radio crackled again. Backup was still 10 minutes out, but another voice joined the channel, Dr. Emily Chen, the reserve's wildlife veterinarian. "Joseph, I heard the report. Are Zuri and the cubs all right?" "They're alive," he confirmed. 4 cubs, just hours old. "But Emily, one of them is white." "Completely white." A stunned silence conveyed the veterinarian's shock. "A leucistic cub?" "Are you certain?" she finally responded, her voice a mix of awe and concern. "Positive." And somehow, the poachers knew. They were heading straight for this den. "I'm on my way," Emily replied. "Keep your distance. Zuri needs to bond with them, especially one that looks different. Any human interference could cause her to reject it." Joseph retreated and established a perimeter. As more rangers arrived, he briefed them, stressing the need for heightened security and absolute confidentiality about the white cub's existence. Dr. Chen arrived 30 minutes later. In her early 40s, Emily had spent a decade with African wildlife after leaving San Diego Zoo. Her expertise was invaluable. After Joseph explained everything, she agreed on the need for extreme caution. White lions are more than just rare, they're culturally significant to many local communities. Some see them as divine, others as omens. The poachers saw them as a payday, Joseph replied grimly. But how did they know? The cubs couldn't be more than a few hours old. Emily's expression darkened. That's the worrying part. Someone with inside knowledge of our monitoring tipped them off about Zuri's pregnancy. And if they knew about the white cub specifically, then we have a traitor among us, Joseph finished. Someone with access to Zuri's recent health checks. Months earlier, a routine darting for a health check had revealed her pregnancy. Blood samples, part of standard protocol, might have revealed genetic markers for leucism if examined by someone with the right knowledge. We need round-the-clock surveillance and to find that leak before they try again, Joseph decided. Those cubs, especially the white one, won't be safe otherwise. As if on cue, a distant roar echoed, Jabari, the pride's dominant male, calling for his mate. The rest of the pride would soon grow curious about Zuri's extended absence, making secrecy even harder. Dawn painted the savannah in golden amber, finding Joseph still at his post. He'd stayed through the night, resting briefly while other rangers patrolled. Dr. Chen had set up a discreet observation point 50 meters away, using a thermal camera to monitor the den without disturbance. "Any change?" Joseph asked, approaching as light strengthened. Emily nodded, dark circles under her eyes. "She's nursing all 4, including the white one. That's a very good sign. Some mothers reject offspring that look different." Joseph felt a wave of relief. "We should name it," he said unexpectedly. Emily looked up, surprised. "We usually don't name them until they're older. Many don't survive." "This one's different," Joseph insisted. "If we're protecting it, the team needs to see it as an individual, not just the white cub. After a moment, Emily agreed. In science, leucistic animals are sometimes called spirit animals for their coloration. How about rojo? It means spirit in Swahili. Rojo, Joseph repeated. It fits. Their conversation was interrupted by Marcus Kamathi, the reserve's chief administrator. In his 50s, with graying hair, Marcus had managed Samburu for over a decade, balancing conservation, tourism, and politics. "I came as soon as I heard," he said, his composure strained. "Is it true? A white lion cub?" Joseph nodded and led him to the observation setup. Marcus studied the thermal images in silence. "This complicates things significantly," he finally said. "The poachers already know," Joseph pointed out. Marcus frowned. "That's what worries me most. Very few people knew about Zuri's pregnancy, let alone the possibility of a leucistic cub." He turned to Emily. "Who had access to the blood work?" "Just my team and the lab in Nairobi," she replied. 3 people total, all of whom I'd trust implicitly. Someone talked, Marcus insisted. For money or some other reason. The idea that a colleague might be collaborating with poachers was almost unthinkable. Marcus sighed, rubbing his forehead. Regardless, our priority is protection. I'm authorizing 24/7 security. Joseph, I want you to lead the team. What about scientific disclosure? Emily asked. No announcements, Marcus decided firmly. Not yet. Documentation can wait until we're sure the cub will survive and we've found the leak. A soft alert from Emily's equipment drew their attention. On the screen, Zuri rose and stretched. The tiny cubs mewed in protest. She's likely hungry, Emily noted. She hasn't left to hunt since giving birth. As if confirming this, the lioness moved to the den entrance, pausing to look back. Then she emerged into the light, scanning her surroundings, her nostrils flaring. She looked directly toward their hidden post, acknowledging their presence before padding away toward the river. She knows we're here, Joseph said. She's trusting us to watch them. Don't anthropomorphize, Emily cautioned, though her expression suggested similar thoughts. But yes, she's remarkably comfortable with our proximity. The real test came within minutes of Zuri's departure. Movement at the den entrance caught their attention. Joseph's breath hitched as a tiny form tumbled out into the sun, Rojo. His eyes weren't fully open, but his curiosity was stronger than his caution. This is bad, Emily said urgently. He can't regulate his body temperature, and predators will spot that white coat instantly. Joseph was already moving, sprinting toward the den. He reached Rojo just as a shadow passed overhead, a martial eagle, a formidable predator large enough to carry off a newborn cub. The bird banked sharply, its eyes fixed on the unusual white form. Joseph scooped up the impossibly small, fragile cub, who squealed in protest. The eagle made another pass before Joseph's shouts and wild gestures finally drove it away. Cradling Rojo, he hurried back to the den, only to find a new problem. The 3 tawny cubs had followed their adventurous sibling and were now tumbling out into the open, blind and vulnerable. Emily, I need help. Joseph called. Together, they gathered the cubs, checking for injuries. All appeared healthy but disoriented. A small rock slide, likely caused by their attempts to follow Rojo, had partially collapsed the den entrance. The passage was now too narrow for them to return, and for Zuri to re-enter. They faced an impossible dilemma. Leaving them exposed meant certain death, removing them risked rejection if they carried human scent. We need a temporary shelter right here, Joseph decided. Using branches, canvas from the observation blind, and stones, they constructed a makeshift shelter that offered protection from sun and aerial predators while leaving an opening for Zuri. It's not ideal, Emily acknowledged, placing the cubs inside. Joseph hesitated before placing Rojo with his siblings. The white cub lay quietly in his hands, eyes squinting against the light. For a moment, Joseph felt an unexpected connection with this tiny predator, whose very uniqueness made him a target. You've got a challenging road ahead, little one, he murmured, gently setting him down. They retreated to a safe distance, anxiously monitoring. An hour passed, then 2. Something's wrong, Joseph finally voiced their shared fear. She should be back by now. Emily nodded grimly. Lions don't hunt this long when they have newborn cubs. Unless something happened to her. Without their mother, the cubs would die within days. Even if the team attempted hand-rearing, the cubs could never return to the wild. Joseph made a decision. He would follow her trail. Following Zuri's tracks toward the river, Joseph moved cautiously. Her paw prints were clear, purposeful. He maintained radio contact. The tracks led to a small clearing near the riverbank, now disturbed by multiple human footprints and tire marks. Joseph's heart sank. Patches of darkened soil that could only be blood, and empty tranquilizer darts half hidden in the grass. I found the site, he reported grimly. Zuri was ambushed. They darted her and loaded her into a vehicle heading north. Poachers don't typically take adult lions, Marcus's voice crackled back. They want cubs or trophies. Joseph considered this, photographing the scene. Maybe they're using her as leverage. They know the cubs won't leave the den without her. Or, the unspoken thought hung in the air, an adult leucistic lion would also be incredibly valuable. The next 6 hours became a desperate race. The reserve's helicopter scanned the network of rough roads. Joseph joined the ground tracking team, following the vehicle's trail toward the neighboring country. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Emily faced a critical situation. The cubs were weakening, their mews growing fainter. Without Zuri's milk, they wouldn't survive more than a day or two. We need to consider intervention, she radioed Marcus. I can prepare formula and begin hand feeding. That makes them captive animals permanently, Marcus replied, his voice strained. Once hand-raised, they can never be fully wild again. If we don't intervene, they'll die, Emily countered. Especially Rojo. He's smaller. He'll be the first to go. A heavy silence followed, the impossible choice every conservationist dreads. Begin supplemental feeding, Marcus finally authorized. But keep human contact to an absolute minimum. A breakthrough came from the pursuit team. The helicopter spotted an abandoned vehicle near a dry riverbed, close to the border. Joseph was among the first to reach it. The modified truck had been hastily abandoned. A small amount of blood and used syringes were found in a hidden compartment. They've sedated her for transport, explained the team's vet. But these dosages are dangerously high if they don't administer the reversal agent soon. Excessive sedation could kill as easily as a bullet. As night fell, thermal imaging equipment scanned the landscape. Shortly after midnight, a search team radioed in a sighting, 3 men carrying a large wrapped bundle through a narrow pass. The reserve's armed unit, alongside local police, moved in. The confrontation was brief. Surrounded, the poachers surrendered. The bundle contained Zuri, alive but severely compromised, dehydrated and suffering from excessive sedation. Joseph watched as the medical team worked frantically to stabilize her. Her breathing was shallow, her magnificent body limp. Will she make it? He asked. It's touch and go, came the honest reply. As Zuri fought for her life, Emily continued her efforts with the cubs. They accepted formula from specialized bottles, but they were weakening, particularly Rojo. By dawn, the situation remained critical on both fronts. Zuri had survived the night, stable enough for transport back to the reserve's facility. The cubs were failing without their mother's care. A difficult decision was made, the cubs would be transported to the same facility, giving the cubs and their mother the best chance. Using specialized transport containers lined with natural materials, the cubs were carefully moved. Rojo received constant attention from Emily, his unusual coloration making his vulnerability all the more poignant. At the medical facility, a critical reunion was attempted. Zuri, conscious but weak, was placed in a quiet recovery area. The cubs were brought in one by one. They watched anxiously as the first cub was placed near Zuri. The lioness raised her head weakly, nostrils flaring. For a heart-stopping moment, she seemed confused. Then, slowly, she began to lick the tiny form, a fundamental maternal behavior. The second and third cubs were accepted the same way. Finally, Rojo was gently placed alongside his siblings. The white cub made a soft mewling sound. The room fell silent as Zuri carefully sniffed the unusual cub, her reaction unpredictable. After an eternity, she gently gathered Rojo close with a paw, drawing him into the protective circle with his siblings. Collective relief washed over the room. The first critical hurdle was overcome. The following weeks brought both challenges and triumphs. Zuri gradually recovered her strength. The cubs thrived under her care, supplemented with formula that the team disguised as coming from their mother. Rojo, though consistently smaller, showed remarkable resilience. His white coat, so dangerous in the wild, became his most endearing feature in captivity. As news of his existence carefully spread through official channels, he became an ambassador for his species, a symbol of both the rarity and fragility of Africa's lions. The investigation revealed an inside source, a laboratory technician in Nairobi, in debt and vulnerable, who recognized the genetic markers in Zuri's blood and passed the information along. His arrest led to the identification of a larger trafficking network. 6 months after the harrowing events of Rojo's birth, Joseph stood at the edge of a spacious, naturalistic enclosure where Zuri and her cubs now lived. The difficult decision had been made not to return them to the wild. Rojo's visibility made him too vulnerable, and separating him from his family was deemed more harmful. Instead, they became the centerpiece of a new conservation education center, their story teaching thousands about the challenges facing Africa's lions and the devastating impact of the illegal wildlife trade. Rojo, larger now but still distinctive with his snow-white coat, romped with his siblings under their mother's watchful eye. Visitors gasped and pointed, capturing the rare sight. But Joseph saw beyond the striking appearance to the resilience the cub represented, a living reminder that in conservation, survival often depends on a delicate balance of intervention and respect. "He's going to change how people see conservation," Emily remarked, joining Joseph. "Not just another endangered animal statistic, but an individual with a story." Joseph nodded, watching Rojo playfully pounce. "People protect what they connect with. He gives them that connection." In the complex calculus of modern conservation, Rojo's story represented both challenge and hope, a reminder that preserving the rare and beautiful sometimes requires human intervention, even as it complicates the very definition of wild.